We've all heard the terms peaks and valleys used to describe various parts of our lives here on earth. When people find themselves at a good point in their lives, or when it seems that everything is going right for them, they refer to that period as being a peak or a mountaintop. Likewise, we find we are at a low point in our daily struggles when nothing seems to be going right, when all hope is lost and we are discouraged. We refer to that period of time as being in a valley of life. In our walk with Jesus, sometimes we find that we're called into this valley period, a place of fear and loneliness. We may even feel at times like Jesus has abandoned or forsaken us. It was Jesus who said, when valley experiences come, when life tumbles in, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. John 14, verse 1. David wrote in Psalm 118, verse 6, and the Hebrews writer reiterates in Hebrews 13:6, the Lord is my helper, I will not be afraid. Deuteronomy 31, verse 6 has God saying, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Our valley experiences may seem as if the Lord is absent, that he's not listening. But he may indeed be saying, let not your heart be troubled. Trust me. But it's up to us to listen. It's in life's valleys that faith is refined and strengthened. Rejoice now, for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, refined by fire, may be proven genuine. 1 Peter 1, verses 6 and 7. When we find ourselves in the valley, we must change our thinking, from thinking the worst to thinking correctly. We must know that life is not bouncing from mountaintop to mountaintop. Life also has its valleys. Consider the example of Elijah. He was a man of God, yet faced his own valley experiences, seasons of intense struggles where his thinking was not always right. 1 Kings tells his story. Elijah had just celebrated his victory defeating the priests of Baal, when fire from heaven came down and consumed his sacrifice. The children of Israel fell on their faces, saying, the Lord, he is God. When Jezebel heard that the prophets of Baal had been defeated, she threatened Elijah with his life. So he ran and hid, saying, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Here we have an example of the wrong kind of thinking. When we're in the valley, whenever we are tired, tried, or discouraged, our thoughts get the best of us, and we begin to think like Elijah. What do we do when we're at a valley moment in our lives? Like Elijah, what will help change our wrong thinking? Several weeks ago, Joe May talked in his devotional about the right kind of thinking. And tonight I want to stress how important it is to keep that right kind of thinking, especially when we are at valley moments or low points in our lives. First, we are to recall God's deliverance of us and others. Why didn't Elijah recall how God had miraculously fed him at the brook Cherith? How he had supplied food for the widow and enabled him to raise her son from the dead? Or how he had sent fire from heaven on Mount Carmel? David shows us right thinking in Psalm 40. In the pit of his despair, he says, many, O Lord, are the wonders you have done. The things you planned for us no one can count. Were I to speak and tell of them, they would be too many to declare. Verse 5. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put in my mouth a new song, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. Blessed is the man who makes the Lord his trust, who does not look to the arrogant, to those who turn to false gods. Verses 2 through 4 of Psalm 40. We see David stirring his spiritual memory to help him with his valley experience. It was Paul who reminds us in Romans 15, verse 4, these things were written for our learning. Next, we should talk it out. Jesus used the written word to send Satan on his way during the wilderness temptations by saying, it is written in Matthew chapter 4. Question: have you ever out loud quoted Bible scripture, especially as you're being tempted by Satan? It's more effective than you might think. It worked for Jesus, and it'll work for us today as well. If we read 1 Kings 19, verses 3 and 4, we find Elijah left his servant in town and went a day's journey into the wilderness by himself. Again, the wrong decision. Discussing our experiences, especially at our low points with one another and with fellow Christians, is good therapy. There is a reason for Paul's admonition of Colossians 3, verse 16. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, and as you sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God. Also, we should look for ministry opportunities at these low points of our lives. While Elijah was feeling sorry for himself, God was preparing him to anoint the next king of Israel and to mentor the next prophet, Elisha. Someone has said that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. Think of Paul and Silas singing songs of praise while in stocks and uncertain of their fate. Paul, a prisoner in Rome, continues to share Jesus with his guards. John, on the Isle of Patmos, sees a glorious vision of the future church. Here we see the idea of thinking of others, serving God and others. It takes our mind off of self and softens the pain we experience while in a valley. And finally, persistence is the key to dealing with valley experiences. Christianity is a religion of perseverance, even in the valleys. It was Jesus who said, "Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life." Revelation 2:10. God desires our faithfulness unto and until death. We must know there is no situation or circumstance we can find ourselves in where we should deny Jesus. There's no retirement from our faith and trust in God. I think we can see that valley thinking is important. We must not think the worst, but consider what God has done for us and others. Talk about our valley situation and look for ways to serve God and others. When in the valley, Paul's advice should reign supreme. Finally, brethren, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, right, pure, lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Philippians 4, verse 8. If you're here tonight and are experiencing a valley moment in your life and want to turn over your life to Christ, or if you are a Christian and desire the prayers of the church to help with the low point in your life, you have that opportunity to come forward tonight.